Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So it looks like we're waiting on Alderman Mortland and Ms. Walsh. So we'll give them a minute. I see Ryan connecting. I see a phone number on here. Is that Amber Walsh? It's muted.
Bob, that could be me.
Yes. Is that you, Ryan?
It could be. Yeah, that's me, the 283. I'm trying to associate it with my video.
Okay. So then we're only waiting on Ms. Walsh. We'll give her a minute if that's okay with everybody. She did indicate that she would be able to attend. While we're waiting, we are going to have a few PowerPoint slides this morning. Morgan, our wonderful communication assistant, informs me sometimes there may be delays in those coming up. It's purely just the lag time with the electronic technology. So if we're waiting on a PowerPoint slide, it's just a delay with the technology. So appreciate everybody's patience. We do have a quorum if you'd like to go ahead and get started. And then if Amber joins us, we'll just duly note that.
That sounds good, Bob.
So I'll go ahead and call the roll. Alderman Mortland.
Here.
Alderman Allen.
Here.
Mr. Solomon.
Here.
Mr. Tarlas.
Here.
And Mr. Sanders.
Here.
You do have a quorum. Ready to proceed.
All right, Bob, I'd like to call a motion for the approval of the last task force meeting minutes.
Second.
So all those in favor of the meeting minutes being approved from last time, say aye.
Aye.
Or thumbs up, aye. Okay. They're approved. And
Aye.
then, thank you. And then the motion for, Bob, we also had the motion for the agenda. Is that what it was?
Looks like it wasn't on the actual agenda, but if we could, that would be excellent, Alderman.
Okay. So you, Bob, are you stating I should do another motion or should
Motion
I?
to approve the agenda, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So I'd like to do a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Todd. So this is just some of the Robert's Rules formalities. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. All right. And I see Amber's joined too, so this is great. Okay. All right, Bob. So we're good to go on that piece. And then if we want to, I'll hand it back to you and Morgan for the summary of the 2005 PAR group study.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Morgan, if you can go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint slide and we'll give a review of the 2005 PAR group. I know everybody has received this, but I thought it may be helpful just to hit a few summaries So in 2005, the entire service area for West County Fire and EMS was 21 square miles. The service area encompassed 45,000 residents. Town and Country at the time made up 11,000 of those residents and 12 of the 21 square miles. The service area was, and for the most part, as I understand it, still is, most of Town and Country, the cities of Manchester, the village of Country Life Acres, parts of the city of Baldwin, Twin Oaks, Winchester, and portions of unincorporated St. Louis County. We looked at a map last time. We'll have another map towards the end here. So call volumes in 2004 for the entire district, fire and other calls were 1,326. EMS calls were 3,032 for a total of 4,558. Town and Country made up for fire and other 604 of those calls in that year, and EMS was 371. So for a total of Town and Country calls, 1,975. And the report in 2004 indicated that Town and Country made up 43% of the West County District calls. So the report also broke out total calls by West County Fire and EMS by type. And they indicated in 2004, businesses made up 36%, nursing homes made up 24%, residential made up 23%, and highways 16%. They also provided, and I'm sorry, yeah, stop me, wave, yell, anybody let me know if I can't see somebody. I do see Alderman Allen.
I have a question. As we move forward with this, or will we come back so that we will actually do the comparisons? Will we do that the next step? Or at this point, as I know time is of the essence, could we, or was I going to screw up what a presentation was today?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, it's very, very timely. And I would recommend, as long as the commission is in favor, that we actually plan at your August 21st meeting to have Chief Sadler provide updated data so we can do a comparison of where we were. We have a little bit in today, but again, they do a fantastic job with the data. And so I'm sure he would be more than happy to provide that information, and then we could get a comparison. So great. And again, I have a little bit in this slide today. So in 2004, they also ran their response times by house. So you can see below for fire, house 1, 5 minutes and 15, EMS was 5:02, house 2. And so house 1 is the one at Mason, or it's on Manchester, a little bit east of Mason. House 2 is the one off Manchester and Henry. So those response times you can see for fire, EMS, and then house 3. And obviously our response times were longer. We'll get into that. For fire, 6 minutes and 47, and EMS 6 minutes and 8 seconds. Okay. There was a discussion in 2004, and it has continued, about response times per ward, and they broke it out in this report by business and residential. Ward 1, you can see business 5:29, residential 5 minutes, other 4:54. Ward 2, you can see those numbers. Ward 3, and then Ward 4. And again, Ward 4 throughout this 2004 study was of a little bit of focus. So they also, in the study, did some drive times, and they indicated an actual drive time from to Clayton and Bope, which is in Ward 1. And the miles from house 3 were 2.8, and the time was 4 minutes, 31 seconds. From the Frontenac Fire Department, it was 1.2 miles and 2.17. And so the report, obviously, as you all have seen, talks about mutual aid. They also talk about mutual aid from the Monarch Fire Station, which I'll have a couple of some information, but they really didn't give drive times, which I thought was interesting. So we're ready to move to the next. The 2005 agreement, according to the report, basically indicates that the cost was based on an annual CPI increase plus a utilization factor. So it was based on increase or decrease in number of calls. We no longer have that in the agreement. And that factor was not to exceed 7%. I thought that was interesting. Prior to 2001, the fee for the West County for fire and EMS was based on the town and country assessed value times the tax rate. However, state law changed that did not require the fee to be based on that. And then the 2000 report stated that if we had been using the assessed value, the cost would have been $6 million. And the report indicated at the time the cost to town and country was approximately $3 million. And that per capita was $290 for town and country. Okay, the report also indicated at the time that if town and country were annexed by the fire district, that the fire district board had agreed to maintain the tax rate at the time for 5 years, and that they would also build, staff, and equip an additional station in town and country. The report indicated that, and as you know, they looked at a variety of options, but they indicated for a city-run department, if the city determined that we would equip and house and staff a fire department, fire and EMS, that it would cost us $312, plus we would have capital costs of fire engines and ambulances, plus the annual $640,000 in statutory, and that's what we talked about last time. There's some areas in West County Fire and Creve Coeur Fire that the city is required to pay because they were annexed. The report also indicated that if the city operated the fire department, it would have less manpower to draw from because we don't have all the other stations that West County has, and we would not have all the equipment resources that West County has. Okay, Ward 4, again, they did drill down a little bit for Ward 4 and indicated at the time businesses were 71.5% of the calls, residents were 12.9% of calls, other were 11.6%. The interstate, and so the 11 they indicate was mostly 141 in the outer road. Interstate was 4%, and they indicated 80% of those businesses were on the south outer 40. So I guess that was probably nursing home facilities. The summary, and you'll be able to see the actual summary. I was trying to actually see what page, but basically because of the mutual aid with the surrounding departments and districts, that there was not the need, or that the need was borderline for a second station in town and country. Again, page 32 of the report and 55 discuss response to Ward 4 from Monarch, but they didn't give any actual times of what those response times were. I'm sure, again, Alderman Allen brought up getting some updated information, and Chief Sadler, if you'd like to have him on, I'm sure would be glad to address that information as well. The only other item I have is our next slide under the report is they also gave operating, and this kind of goes to your agenda item 5 with options for fire EMS service. And These were the cost at the time for the entire district. Again, we saw what it was for the town and country per capita, but the entire West County EMS fire district, their operating cost in 2005 was 194. DePere was 243 per capita, Monarch 255, Frontenac 267, and the Creve Coeur Fire District 308. And again, as you saw, the consultants were very positive about the service of West County, the additional stations that West County has. So, you know, a total of 3 stations, including the town and country station to serve. And so again, their conclusions were that the West County Fire is a good service when they compared to the other departments. Before I move into anything else, aldermen, or co-chairs, if there are any questions about the report, I think probably, or to be honest, any comparison items you would like to see as we go forward, probably now is a good time.
Can you remind me, please, the cost of the report originally, and the timing, like how long it takes to produce a report?
Ms. Walsh, that's an excellent question, and I know you brought it up at the last. I tried to contact the PAR group. They are no longer in business. However, I was able to locate one of their former consultants, Dr. Tim McGrath, who is willing to look at providing that information. And I did ask him for time and cost, but he said he would need more definitive scope of what it was we would want. But I will go back and find out the timing and the cost of this study for you. I do not have that currently.
Thank you. But the report itself, I have no questions, just obviously trying to consider the wisdom of doing any sort of refresh on the report.
Todd, I see your hand waving.
Yeah. Are we, I mean, are we going, I know you mentioned we're gonna get updated figures, but I mean, are we, what is that gonna look like? Are we gonna get from 2019 what those figures look like? Was it a 3-year average? I mean, what? Because
So,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm going to give you just a couple of very broad numbers that I have just been provided previously by Chief Sadler. Again, he attends the Town and Country Fire and EMS Commission meetings on a regular basis and gives very detailed data. So I know he's more than happy to provide anything. So I'm going to give you, coming up, you know, we'll kind of move into our next agenda item. And I would like to hear if there are any other specifics you would like to see.
Not off of the 2005 report. No.
Right. Yeah, I just thought since we had that information, it'd be helpful to give us some background.
Right.
I see Alderman Allen.
Okay, thank you, Bob. One thing that Alderman Morton and I did meet with Chief Sadler a week or so ago. One of the comments had to do with the condition of our firehouse on Clayton and Mason. And last night on our board, we had to approve, we happily approved updating some of the systems there. One of the comments had to do with the age and overall condition and cost to operate our current fire station. I'm assuming it is hopefully always kept up to snuff what we would want it, but at some point I think that would be good information to have in this process.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions on the report, I'll move into just a couple again of these slides I have to provide you some updated call volume statistics. Okay, so again, this was some information that was provided by Chief Sadler in a prior graphic. So the call volumes, and this is town and country. So the call volumes 1992 were less than 1,000. His call volumes in 2018, this is total fire and EMS, we're approaching 2,500. And again, you may recall in our 2005 study, the calls were 2,000. So that tracks right with this chart. So then he also provides population trends as well. Obviously, there were some annexations of some area in there that went to that. So that's what's happened with call volumes. And I'm sure, again, the chief would be glad to provide types of calls and all kinds of data that would be helpful. Then our next slide is, again, a chart that had been previously provided. And this broke out from 2002 by ward, average response times. So you see Ward 1, 6 minutes, Ward 2, 4 minutes, 48, Ward 3, 5 minutes, Ward 4, 6 minutes, 10 seconds. And then a little bit more difficult to read, but the EMS, Ward 1, 6 minutes, Ward 2 looks like it's 5 something. I don't have that. Ward 2 was actually 3.9. Ward 3 EMS calls 4.9, and Ward 4 6.43 for our 2019 response times.
Bob,
Yes.
I just want to note for the everyone here, the Ward 2 is compromised. Chief Sadler had said that it's being served from 2 firehouses. So the faster time is also coming from Manchester and Mason's firehouse. So whoever can get there quickest.
Okay, excellent point. So the next slide gives just a overview of the current remaining area of the West County EMS and fire outside of town and country. So they have 10 square miles they're serving. They serve approximately 40,000 residents in those other areas I identified before. They have 4,000 residents per square mile. Those 2 fire stations, which we had indicated, they're running approximately 4,500 calls annually. And then you can see they have average response time, turnout time, and rolling response. Their average response is 4.47. The next slide I have for this information is the various stations located, both the station in town and country, which is shown as West County 3 in the middle of the screen. And then you see the Creve Coeur Fire District stations, Monarch stations, the other 2 West County stations, Kirkwood, Pear, Frontenac, Ladue, Metro West. So that's kind of a snapshot of where all the mutual aid comes from. See Alderman Allen.
Sorry, I was muted. As we look further for the actual anticipation of getting from a firehouse certainly to an area of town and country, and I'm actually looking at Ward 4. On any subsequent maps or drawings, it would be helpful, in my opinion, to have the cloverleaf drawn in, for instance, around, I'll call it a cloverleaf, the intersection of 141 and 40, I actually was in a fire truck this summer when we were doing the Citizens Night Out with the fire and police. And we went from Marieville to Maryville University. And that was sort of a bottleneck. So as we look, to me, if we look at access of various areas with an expected route that would be followed, to me, the map could be enhanced, give us more information of what that route would be and have to go through.
Okay. We'll plot those on the map.
Thank you.
Quick question. So the firehouse that's on Mason and Clayton,
Yes.
when you're giving these numbers and these figures and time stuff, is that inclusive of that firehouse? In other words,
No.
Okay.
So these current numbers, Todd, that show the 2 stations, that's just the 10 square miles, that last slide we just had.
Right.
Those do not include the town and country station calls or service area or population.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. The only other information I have, and I'm kind of skipping ahead to options, and I bounced around, I apologize, but this is kind of the way the slides came up, is Mayor Dalton, who apologized he couldn't be here this morning, did ask to provide some background on annexation. And I don't want to get into the details of what service would be provided if we were annexed by the West County Fire District. I think that would be up to Chief Sadler. But we were, for some other purposes, running the numbers on the assessed valuations. And the current, as you see at the top, is what the current rate is for West County Fire and EMS for those areas that are part of the fire district. So this is not town and country residents. And you can see it's $1.10, $1.22, depending on residential, commercial. The fire district has indicated if town and country were part of the fire district, their rates would drop to 98 cents. I assume that's residential only. I don't know, but we just plugged in to give an example. If town and country were part of the fire district at the 98 cents, the median appraised value, according to St. Louis County in town and country, is $650,000. So the tax for that median house annually would be $1,210 for the fire district. So again, just informational, what that rate would be and what that would equate to. So that's all of the kind of data that I have at this point. Again, I think as Alderman Allen said, we're probably at the point that you want to get some comparison information from Chief Sadler prior to your next meeting, but I'm open to any thoughts, ideas, questions.
When we're looking at all these numbers and everything, is there, and I apologize, I'm kind of new to all this, so I don't know. So I'm going to use the wrong word, profit. So I understand I'm not going that direction, but obviously when budgets are made, a lot of times budgets have to be met or budgets are cut the following year. So when Town and Country is giving us figures and numbers, are they factoring in any excess funds or revenue that would carry over to previous years, or are these are just purely estimations, I guess, that they're providing?
So that would be a question for the fire district, but okay. I assume they set their tax rate based on the total assessed valuation that is permitted. I don't know exactly. I know they have a board of directors, but to be honest, I don't know how their budget works.
Okay. And then the information that's provided to us, is there any sort of auditing process, or are we just going off their word, off of what things are?
So as far as like call volumes and response
Well,
times,
Call volumes, costs. In our previous meeting, you said that at one point, Town and Country negotiated an agreement with them that they kind of resonated that they were losing revenue from, that they couldn't operate off of that. How do we know? I mean, obviously we like to believe everybody's true and honest, but at the end of the day, people make mistakes too. So how do we know the information that they're providing us is true? And I've heard on 2 different calls the comment about Ward 4, which I live in Ward 4, so obviously I'm sensitive to it, but that, you know, their scheduling of the timing of how long it takes trucks to enter certain populations of Ward 4 might be skewed a little bit too. So I guess my question is, when we're being provided financial information or data from any of the municipalities, fire district, what's the checks and balances to make sure the information that we're receiving is actually accurate and they're not just estimates?
right? So I do know in the prior negotiations, the fire district has provided their cost for staffing, their cost for insurance, their cost for operation and utilities at the firehouse, which they pay us rent, and then they pay for those operations. So they have provided that information to us, Todd.
All right, thank you.
Ryan, I see your hand.
Yeah, and Todd, you know, when we have Chief Sadler on, he can kind of go into more of the areas of, you know, where they're operating at less than our current agreement. It has them staffing only 5 people, and the optimal or acceptable kind of is 6 people on a shift. And so there's a couple areas to where there's opportunities to improve just even our existing service as is, to help you know, help serve our citizens.
Sue?
Also, I know currently, Chief Sadler has said that on a call, they will send both the fire truck and an EMS and an ambulance. And I don't know, for those of you who were here previously, 5 years ago, if that was the same practice. You know, they said, I guess there would be times that an emergency would then, instead of just having the medical update, the care that an EMS would provide, they needed the fire truck. But to me, that would often not need that fire truck, but you always have to be prepared for the worst. You know, do you all know any of the history behind that practice? Nope.
I believe a pumper responds for the extra manpower. I do know if it's on the interstate, it's to assist with blocking traffic, often cleaning up after the accident. But I think it's additional manpower. Most times the Town and Country Police are dispatched to these calls as well and are available. If they're first on scene, they do carry the AEDs and they are trained with CPR and those types of things. So I guess what I'm hearing, or if I don't hear anything else, we'll go ahead and proceed this way, is to ask Chief Sadler to provide us prior to your August 21st meeting, some comparison updated data with their response times and volumes and calls, and potentially even some of his budget numbers. And then we would also ask him to attend that meeting and to be present. Is that the consensus of this group?
It would be great.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. And if anything comes up, you think of anything, yeah, I'll go ahead and send out this PowerPoint. I apologize, I didn't get it to you in advance, but if you think of something you'd like to see in the meantime, please let me know, and we'll get that put together.
Bob,
Sure.
I have one question on the, excuse me. So since I live in Ward 1 and I kind of live by Bope and Clayton, mutual aid, Frontenac obviously would get to my house before they would, TNC or West County would get to my house if I had a heart attack per se. Is there any way to talk to Chief Sadler and talk to him and get mutual aid calls where, or in our surrounding borders, mutual aid calls have happened, so that, you know, I know obviously they would dispatch and they would get there too, but you know, the mutual aid responder would probably get there first on our perimeter, if you will. And I think that's valuable information for all of us, because when you start thinking about locating different firehouses in different places, mutual aid comes into effect there too. And so I think that would be beneficial to all of us to maybe know how much mutual aid there is occurring on our border, if you will.
Real quick, Don, I think it's a great idea. As a matter of fact, we should probably ask not only what mutual aid is incoming, but what mutual aid is outgoing from the Town and Country station, House 3. Great. Okay, I see Sue has a question.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to that question. A year or so ago, I believe there was an extensive fire in Muirfield, which is the northern part. It's pretty far, very close to Creve Coeur. And I was told by our chief that West County got there about the same time that I guess probably, I don't know if it was Monarch or Creve Coeur, but the mutual aid assisting entity got there about the same time as West County. And that's a long ways from Clayton Road and Mason. I did also want to add, Bob, for next time, were you going to have possibly an update, what Amber had mentioned about having a potential entity to help with this? Or do you think that?
Yeah, I can certainly pull the prior cost and timeline. And I do know from talking to some people, it was a lengthy process. As you can see, it's a very detailed report. The initial conversation I had with the consultant was they would recommend not going back and looking at each of these options, because his initial, again, recommendation was you've kind of looked at these surrounding options. His opinion would be to focus on your agreement with West County and those services and any changes or amendments you would need to make, and kind of a better analysis of that. And that would be, in his opinion, more beneficial use of that time. But I can get a ballpark cost for that and ballpark time, I think is what I'm hearing.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're muted, Amber.
Thank you. That's what the consultant recommended from doing work 15 years ago?
No. So he just took, I sent him that prior study and his.
So he refreshed on.
He was, his kind of, again, not with any detail, not with any conversation with this commission, was you've looked at these comparison opportunities before. He doesn't know that he would, you know, as a consultant, spend a lot of time. But again, if that's something that this group wanted to do, that would be that. But I guess it would be difficult to get a timeline and a cost without having a scope, is my, unless we want to say we want the same kind of report, then we could just go from there.
First of all, time could very likely be the big negative we have to deal with.
Right. I just think it's something that we need to consider, given we're relying on recent experience, which is largely positive. And then the data, that survey is incredibly helpful, but it is 15 years old. And just to make sure that we have fully considered, I'm not convinced it needs to be refreshed. I'm just curious and sensitive of the time and hoping to just make that judgment call pretty quickly.
Well, and as far as time for getting figures is I mean, what happens if we don't give them a definitive answer by December 31st? I mean, is there an opportunity for an extension if they know we're gathering data and figures that are taking a little bit of time?
I think that's definitely a discussion that could take place, Todd. Yeah, I don't have a specific answer, but maybe that's something we could even bring up with the chief.
Oh, Don, did you have a question before? I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody knows since 2005, we have a lot more assisted living facilities in Town and Country. And so majority, since I am on the Fire Police Commission, it's always a topic of discussion with Chief Sadler, the number of calls actually to all of these senior citizen places. And that's where a majority of these EMS calls are. And also the hospitals. Missouri Baptist, somebody falls in the parking lot, we're dispatched to go take care of it. The hospital does not address that. So there's a tremendous amount of calls that are being every year getting increased because the number of beds that are increasing in Town and Country. Just want to point that out.
Yes, thank you. Bob, can I add one more thing?
Sure, yeah,
AI.
absolutely. You're the co-chair.
I wanted to let the members also know that last night, I don't think we mentioned this yet today. Last night at our board meeting, the mayor did recognize that he will be adding a couple more individuals to this task force. I think he will announce the names at our next meeting. Is that correct?
I heard mention of appointments. I'm not sure exactly timing, but I did hear mention of potential appointees.
He mentioned to me.
Okay, all right.
He'll do that.
So my homework then is to get in touch with Chief Sadler. He and I obviously have been in conversation, and I'll follow up. And again, if there's any other data information, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. Be glad to add to the list. I don't know if we were going to try to set our next meeting after August 21st. Is that something we'd like to try to get
That would be
done?
great, Bob. Yeah, just always schedule 2 meetings out. That'd be great.
So that would put us early September. Tuesday is September the 8th, if you like Tuesdays. Or you could go later in that week. You could go September 15th. I don't know what everybody's schedule looks like.
I'm open to everything. Life is boring.
I'm going to be traveling both those weeks, but I can make a Zoom call and work, no problem.
Yeah, I'm good on the 8th.
The 8th works.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll put down September 8th.
At 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. If there's no other business, no other discussion, well, one of the co-chairs should ask for a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, stepping in.
So can we get a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for your time and look forward to having Chief Sadler on next time.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Here.